His mother instilled a love of native land in him from a young age. He was always interested in studying the history of his homeland, and Shokay's first memories are connected with the ancient manuscripts kept in their family library. They attracted him, and he liked to hold them in his hands, carefully turning over the fragile pages and inhale their special smell of antiquity. Still unable to read, he looked at the intricate patterns of Arabic script, trying to penetrate the secrets they guarded. The passion for knowledge in their family was esteemed and strongly encouraged. His grandfather, Torgay Joly, the ruler of the Sirdarya Volast of the Khiva Khanate, began to create a library. And his father, Shokay Torgauli, known and respected for his justice and honesty, gave education to teach of his 5 children. First, Mustafa studied in the Russian school in Perovsk, later in the Tashkent Gymnasium, being older than his classmates by 4 years.
Негізі ауылдағы кісілер айтады, 1886 жылы туылған деп. Соның құрдастары болған ертеде, біздің бала кезімізде сөйлескенде.
Mustafa was born in 1886. However, the documents indicate 1890. It was his uncle, Alish, who corrected the birth year specifically for him to be admitted to the Tashkent Gymnasium.
Mustafa екеуі терезенің сыртынан сабақтарын тыңдап жүреді. Сөйтіп жүріп, терезенің сыртын тыңдап жүргенде бір оқушы
Mustafa wanted to study so much, and he spent all the time under the windows of the auditorium. And on occasion, he told right answers to children. One day, the teacher caught Mustafa. After having tested, it turned out that Shokay knew the school program perfectly. The teacher led him to the director to ask for Mustafa's admission to the gymnasium. And of course, he was accepted. Mustafa studied without difficulties. Being a law student of the Imperial St. Petersburg University, educated, intelligent, well-versed in legal norms, he knew several foreign languages. Mustafa Shokay very quickly understood the essence of the royal colonial policy, which looked particularly prominent in the conditions of the Stolypin land reform of June 1907 that deprived the Kazakhs and all Turks of Central Asia of their voting rights, amending the electoral law. Kazakhs were deprived of voting rights in 1907 by Stolypin. To implement land reform, it was necessary to take land from the Kazakhs. Having been remained without land after the abolition of serfdom, echelons and landless peasants went to the territory of Kazakhstan. Mustafa Shokay turned only 22 years when he became a hope of those people, oppressed by the harsh fate. He was a law student. A month before, his father, Shokay Torgauli, B of the Sirdarya Volast, died. At the insistence of the Aksakals, Mustafa interrupted his studies and replaced the father at this post. Mustafa felt that now it was there that he was most needed as a competent lawyer who would protect the rights of fellow countrymen. A short judicial practice showed him all injustice of the royal policy. So the idea of freedom and independence of Muslims of Turkestan appeared in the heart of Mustafa.
Mustafa Shokay с детства видел, в большинстве несправедливость. Хотя его отец был бием, это как народный судья.
Mustafa Shokay had been witnessing injustice since childhood. Although his father was a bey, people's judge who resolved the most controversial issues. However, he could not solve the disputes concerning the interests of the Russian Empire. The court always ordered in favor of immigrants, and so the feeling of justice was instilled in the character of Shokay since childhood. He realized the importance to protect the interests of his people.
Возможно, у него формировалось вот это чувство справедливости, что надо защищать интересы своего народа.
After having returned to St. Petersburg, Mustafa met with representatives of the Muslim national movement and Ali Khan Bukikhanov. Despite the difference in age, they became friends and colleagues. Bukhanov, a former State Duma member from the Cadet Party, noted the outstanding qualities of young Mustafa. He introduced him to many prominent people of St. Petersburg, the leaders of political parties, deputies of the State Duma, scientists, publicists, and writers. Mustafa Shokay and his associates saw Turkestan as a single independent state which could include several autonomous areas with a common religion, history, culture, and language, differing only in dialects. They managed to create such autonomy in November 1917 in Kokand. Shokay was faithful to the idea of a single Turkestan to the end. The scale of thought, the scope of the idea, and his huge heart made him a monumental political figure in the years of immigration.
Мустафа Шокай был в Коканде, была туркестанская автономия, да? Они же хотели провести первые парламентские выборы. Парламентские выборы, представляете, да, в Коканде.
In Kokand, Shokay wanted to hold the first parliamentary elections. This was a unique attempt. I think they would have succeeded, as the experience of other countries shows. The problem was that there were few of them.
Я думаю, если бы это у них получилось сделать на практике, может быть, сейчас действительно здесь уже были бы и другие системы политические, да? Может быть, та же самая парламентская республика и так далее, как во многих европейских странах, да? Их проблема была в том, что их было мало.
He thought a bit wider. All Turkic people scattered around the world should create a single Turkic civilization. He perceived his role in this position.
И для тюркских народов, если они хотят выжить и представлять себе мощное единое целое, было бы желательно создать тюркскую цивилизацию, понимаете? Вот как единое целое. Вот так он, скорее всего, воспринимал свою роль.
Having failed to gain a majority in the elections to the All-Russian Constituent Assembly, the Bolshevik Party forcibly dispersed the Constituent Assembly, put machine guns on the roofs of houses around the Tauride Palace, and began the widespread seizure of power. This period in history would remain as the dark period of the dictatorship of the proletariat and the Red Terror. And one of the first slogans of the Bolsheviks about the right of nations to self-determination, which Shokay and his like-minded people so hoped for, remained only on paper.
И тогда Сталин сказал, да, есть право нации на самоопределение.
And then Stalin said, yes, there is the right of nations to self-determination and respect all nations, etc. These were common words, but there was still a right that was higher. That was the right of the Russian proletariat to put its dictatorship into practice. And the question has been settled by it.
Вопрос этим был исчерпан.
In February 1918, troops especially arrived from Moscow began an assault on Kokand, the capital of autonomy, which, after the voluntary resignation of Muhammadjan Tinishbayev, was headed by Mustafa Shokay. For 3 days, the ancient city was completely destroyed and looted. In response to this act of cruelty, the Bolsheviks witnessed a powerful national liberation guerrilla movement called Basmachi, and liquidated by the Soviet authorities only in the 1930s. Mustafa Shokay managed to escape during the rout and secretly flee to Tashkent. Tashkent became a fateful city in the life of Shokay. He graduated high school, began his political career, and met the love of his life there. He left Tashkent not alone. His wife, Maria Gorina, immigrated with him.
Именно Мария Горина влюбилась в него, и она до конца дней своих его любила. После смерти Мустафы Шокая ее приглашали жить и в Турцию, и в Германию.
Gorina fell in love with him and loved until the end of her days. After Shokay's death, she remained in France in the shelter of the Russian Orthodox Church, although she was invited to Turkey and Germany.
Жизни в Европе. Я никуда не уеду. Я буду жить здесь и жить памятью Мустафы Шокая. И она перешла жить в приют Русской Православной Церкви.
The defeat of the Turkestan Muhtariat had a sobering effect on the Alashordinians. They understood that the change of power would not bring relief to the people. The Tsarist terror was replaced by the Bolshevik, and it would not be possible to reach an agreement with the Soviet authorities. Then the leaders of the Kazakh intelligentsia made the fateful decision for Shokay.
После заявления о том, что о верховенстве диктатуры русского пролетариата алашординцы поняли все. И вот известная троица Букиханов, Дулатов и Ахмед Байтурсынов и Мустафа Шокай.
After the declaration of the supremacy of the dictatorship of the proletariat, the Alashordanians understood everything. Dulatov, Bukhanov, Baitursinov, and Shokay made a close decision on the division of the national liberation movement into two branches, internal and external. Of all the people in Alashorda, Shokay was the most suitable for external work. He knew languages. Thus, Shokay immigrated to France.
Изнутри и снаружи. Мустафа Шокай знал и французский язык, он изучал его в Санкт-Петербурге, в университете. Он знал и другие языки. Именно этими была вызвана эмиграция Мустафы Шокая во Францию.
Mustafa began a new stage of his life. He never returned to his homeland again. He did not inhale the smell of wormwood. He did not see the waves of Sirdarya. It was a difficult decision to leave a place that he loved more than his life. But there was no other way out. Mustafa made a decision. Of course, then he could not realize that he was leaving forever. He sincerely believed that the struggle for freedom would be in vain and he would return. At that time, he did not even know that his native country would moan taking hundreds of thousands of bodies of its repressed sons, and mass executions would make it shudder and become silent.
Он не терял связь с родиной. В одном письме он Марии Чукай пишет, да, вот я.
He kept in touch with the motherland and wrote to Gorina, compatriots came to me, countrymen, so that the NKVD, People's Commissariat of Internal Affairs, would not understand. He harshly criticized the famine. After 1929, we saw New Shokay. He was opening the Yas Turkestan newspaper, which was already considered in the world community.
Он открывает газету «Яш Туркестан», уже с ним считаются в мировом сообществе.
In 1927, ahead of the 10th anniversary of the October Revolution, the Soviet government invited a delegation of French workers to the USSR. They visited Turkestan, who had passed Kazakhstan, making only one 10-minute stop at the Kizlochda station, because the Great Kazakh Steppe was an unattractive spectacle after the first famine. It was not necessary for the French communists to see it. People around reported on victories, achievements, and records. It was about such a Soviet Union that the French then wrote and recited at home in their eulogistic articles. In response to them, Shokay, relying on figures and information from the Soviet periodical press, wrote the book Turkestan under the Soviet Union.
Критикуя советскую власть, даже советские оппоненты его признавали, и по его статьям даже иногда принимались некоторые решения. Проблему использования водных ресурсов, коррупционную систему советской власти и
Even his opponents recognized his criticism of the Soviet authorities, and some decisions were made according to his articles. Soviet newspapers made its analysis on the problem of water resources, the corruption system. He was the first to say that Soviet power was nothing but a continuation of the colonial politics in Turkestan.
Апеллирует на, уже делает свой анализ. И он один из первых говорит, что советская власть – это не что иное, как продолжение колониальной политики царизма в Туркестане.
Military Video Chronicle. Mustafa Shokay learned about the German attack on the Soviet Union in the walls of the Compiègne camp. On June 22nd, 1941, all the leaders of the immigrant organizations were brought here after the arrest. 3 weeks later, they were released and were sent to Berlin as members of the German commissions engaged in collecting data on prisoners of war. Shokay was instructed to create the Turkestan Legion from the captured Soviet Turks imprisoned in concentration camps, which was to fight on the German side. In the early years of the war, the advantage was on the side of the fascists. More and more Soviet soldiers were brought here. Echelons of exhausted, wounded people came here, whom the Soviet command instantly refused, declaring those who were captured traitors. In Germany, Soviet prisoners were held in appalling conditions. After having visited the concentration camps of Suwalki, Wostrow, and Czestochowa in the fall 1941, Mustafa wrote, "Stalin and Hitler are both villains."
Сначала он, конечно, дает согласие объезжает многие лагеря. Он когда увидел этот ужас, в каком состоянии находится его близкие.
At first, he certainly agreed. He saw horror in many camps. He saw his family kept in such condition. He found his relatives among them. Shokay saw his countrymen, approximately 2 million Turkestan residents, died in Berlin. They were Kazakhs, Kyrgyz and Uzbeks.
В одном только случае он как бы спас положение. Значит, евреев узнавали, знаете, вот, да, что они обычно делают обрезание. Значит, и казахи, как бы иудеи.
In one case, he seemed to save the situation for the Jews. They learned them according to circumcision, which meant that the Kazakhs were among them.
Значит, немцы их отстранили. Только не этих евреев только расстреливали.
And they wanted to shoot many Kazakhs. And when he explained what was the matter, only that the Germans released them. Jews were shot. And when he saw the situation, he wrote to the head of the prison and then to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He asked, how can you consider yourself a cultural nation in Europe?
Он говорит, как вы можете себя считать культурной нацией в Европе, когда вы творите и ведете себя хуже, чем...
When you create, behave worse than the army of Genghis Khan that destroyed the people in the 13th century. If you continue this way, I refuse to live in your society.
Вы говорите, чем лучше, если вы дальше будете так вести, я, говорит, отказываюсь жить в вашем обществе.
Documents and official sources also do not confirm the involvement of Mustafa Shokay in the formation of the Turkestan Legion. Full formation began after the death of Shokay in the spring of 1942. The Germans sought to use the socio-political and national contradictions between the peoples of the Union for the decomposition of the country. The order to create Turkestan, Armenian, Georgian, and Caucasian Muslim legions were signed by Hitler on December the 22nd, 1941. At that time, Mustafa Shokay was already in the Berlin hospital. He died and was buried on the land of foreign people here in a Turkish cemetery, Şehitlik, in Berlin. According to the official report, he died of blood poisoning on the background amidst the emerging epidemic of typhus. December the 27th, 1941, he allegedly could have infected while visiting concentration camps. But in her memoirs, Maria Gorina Shokay mentioned that Mustafa had suffered typhus in Turkestan, and he was supposed to be immune. She suspected that Mustafa was caught by the Nazis because of the refusal to cooperate. Grave is located in the courtyard of beautiful Muslim mosque. People pray and take care of the cemetery. The inscription on the stone reads, "My unforgettable husband, Mustafa Shokay, is buried here." This means that his beloved woman buried Mustafa and installed the stone. Who was Mustafa Shokay for his people, for the Turkic world? To this day, this question is causing a lot of controversy, and there are still people calling Shokay a traitor of the motherland. This is the result of the work of the Soviet ideology. But even when the Nuremberg process began, and the communists tried to involve the name of Shokay to associate it with the fascists, they did not succeed because official documents, including Shokay's refusal to act as a co-worker, indicated that Shokay did not harm humanity and his compatriots, and he was not a fascist. And today, reviving our roots and names, we must not forget about Mustafa, a true patriot whose heart ached for his native people.